All right, what is poppin' party pundits? We're in for another episode. This is episode. We are the pundits of pugilism. This is Professor Nims. I'm signing on for Boston Jared.
What up?
The Casual Rand.
What up, though?
And Coach Dave isn't with us this weekend, but we got our first guest pundit. And we got your boy Fuji, your favorite fight fan.
What's up? What's up?
All right. So he is, as he said, your favorite fight fan, and he brings his own kind of unique flavor of expertise. But we're not going to bore you with all of the intros. We do want to remind you to like and subscribe before we get into this. We got a lot of boxing to talk about, particularly the fights over the weekend in DC. But we want to jump into this and talking about your boy Gervonta Tank Davis rolling over Hector Garcia. It was a 9th round TKO. He hit the guy so hard that he blinded him, left him blind in the corner, and searching for his walking stick. But with that said, we're gonna let the casual one jump off this segment. I think
you're not gonna start off with our guest.
Well, no, we usually what we do is
go first.
What we usually do.
No manners. What that Southern hospitality? Why?
Well, what I was gonna say is we usually let the person who is able to get the actual pick right start off the segment. So,
all right.
Yeah. So since I did call the 9th round and I predicted it correctly, I'm not trying to toot my own horn on this, but if you watch multiple Tank fights, you see that the first 5 rounds he's filling you out, he's giving it, he's taking it, and I think by the 5th round he understood that he could take Garcia's power, so he sat in the pocket and he started hitting him and he started touching him, and then a lot of people were like are saying online on the social medias are saying that Tank get hit too much. No, I think that dude purposefully stood right there in the pocket and he was like, I'm gonna get this dude out. And I think during the pause and the break during when Gary Russell was causing that havoc in the stand, I think he even said it when he started back. He yelled something to Garcia, pretty much was like, hey, I'm about to knock your ass out. And sure enough, man, he hit Buddy hard. But it wasn't just that one punch. He was hitting that dude hard. Like the last from 6 on, Garcia was getting hit with some pretty hard shots. And I kudos to him because he ate it and he was trying to give it just as good as he received. But that last one to the temple, he said it going back to the ring. When he got hit and the bell rung, he was walking to the wrong corner. And then when he got to his corner, he was like, yo, I can't see. He was like, I can't see. When he sat down, I was like, yo, they gonna stop this shit.
Yeah, as soon as yeah.
All right. With that said, we're gonna kick it off to Fuji, your favorite fight fan. So were you impressed with Tank's performance, or did you see anything? Because there were some critics out there that would give you any kind of pause.
Me myself, I'm always impressed with Tank's performance, especially because people say he's not a good boxer and he doesn't have good footwork, but he really does. And like Randy said, he will sit in the pocket. He says that he'll sit there and test your power to see if he can take it. And once he feel like he can take it, then he go ahead and get you out of there. That's one thing I like about him. And he got good head movement. He does his thing in there. And I was impressed by his performance because everybody thought this was going to be a big test for him. And this was going to be like a really hard fight to take before the Garcia fight. So I think he did very, very well. I like his performance.
I mean, did you have him winning at the time of the stoppage?
No, I actually had him winning earlier. I picked him for like 6 or 7.
No. What I was saying is that when he was stopped, if like looking at the scorecards, did you have Tank up on your scorecards? Is what?
Not. I can't. It was close, I could say, but it was more on the Garcia side. It was close, but that's what Tank does. Like even with the what was the other fight, the Rolly fight, it was close on that fight too. But that's what he does. He keep it close, and then he figure out how to get you out of there. So
all right, Boston Jared. your thoughts on this fight, and do you favor him more or less going into the actual Garcia fight that we want to see against Ryan?
I mean, this fight to me doesn't really impact how I perceive the outcome of the Garcia fight. I always had him picked to beat Ryan Garcia, and regardless of what happened in this fight, that wasn't going to change how I felt the Ryan Garcia fight would play out. Ryan Garcia doesn't fight like Hector Luis Garcia. Their measurables are totally different, so that wasn't going to affect that. So the answer to that question is no. The answer to the first question, I thought it was a solid performance by Tank. I've been pretty critical of on this platform of Tank's choice of opposition over the last several years. And when this fight got announced, I came on this platform and I said, hey, I rate Hector Luis Garcia, despite him moving up from 130. I thought he was a big 130 pounder. I thought that he would. I didn't think that Tank would be too big for him, or the going up in weight would affect him that much. And I thought it was a good, rock solid performance from Tank. He never really lost his poise, kept his calm the whole time, picked his shots well. Did he give up some rounds, or did Hector Luis Garcia take those rounds? It's something that I'd have to go back and watch it again to really figure that out. I had to fight even at the time of the stoppage. I didn't score it officially, but I remember Coach Dave saying that he only gave 2 rounds to Hector Luis Garcia. I said, Dave, that sounds a little bit crazy, even though it matched up with the Showtime cards, the official Showtime cards. The guy who scored it live for Showtime also had it even. And my rounds matched up pretty closely with his rounds. So yeah, but overall, rock solid performance by Tank, man. I thought that's a good opponent. I think it's one of his better opponents, maybe the best opponent he's fought since Pedraza.
Really?
Yeah, I think so.
Leo Santa Cruz,
not coming up from 100, not 126 pounder, no. And Barrios was a guy who had never beaten anybody. He was moving
up too, also, but he
was, but
he had the frame, but
yeah, he was. I mean, he was taller than Tank, had longer arms than Tank. He was not a little bit light in the ass. You could see his shorts was a little baggy on him. Tank is a little bit more filled out, but Santa Cruz started his career at 126, if I'm not mistaken, right? Or even lighter, maybe.
Yeah,
so
lighter than that. I want to say 122.
No.
With that said, you don't think that there's anything in that performance that gives you pause, right? So, Ryan Garcia is 5'10", which is big for this would be 140 pounds that they would fight at. And if Tank sits in the pocket, Garcia might have the fastest hands, in boxing, where particularly his left hook. And all it takes is one left hook just banging off the top of the head to throw up your equilibrium.
That's true, but I don't know, because he's got that height advantage. He might be able to land that lead left hook over the southpaw, be able to set that up over the lead hand, the southpaw hand of Tank. But I don't believe enough in Ryan Garcia. Look,
right,
you said what?
Oh, I was about to say, can I say something? Yeah, I feel.
No, you can jump in. Yeah, jump in, Fuji.
Yeah, I feel the same way, man. Like Garcia, like he's just if he was smart, he would try to fight on the outside because of his length. But he's not going to be that patient. He's not going to have enough patience with Tank pressuring him. And then when he get pressured, he goes straight back on the straight line, and he don't have no head movement.
With his chin straight up in the air.
Right, and chin straight up in the air.
But if he throws that check hook, I mean, all he has to do is land. But I mean, I think Tank is going to have to find a way to kind of get inside. I mean, because Tank is going to be right. Tank is actually better, like the closer he is in the pocket. But if Ryan Garcia is disciplined, fights on the outside, fights behind his jab, then it would be interesting.
Yeah, that hook. Oh, go ahead, Randy.
I think Tank's career has led him up to this. I mean, like his last 4 fights, maybe all of them were taller. Like he's used to fighting taller, longer fighters. So his style, I don't think that Garcia's Ryan's style is a pretty much threat to him at this point. I think he understands it, and he understands to be cognizant of what Garcia does well. But I think, man, there's way more time. There's way enough time to put a game plan, and he's used to fighting taller fighters to go ahead and get Buddy up out of there.
But not with Ryan's hand speed, though. Ryan's hand speed and Ryan's power is the one thing. And the fact that Ryan Garcia has been sitting around, I wish he'd have taken that fight with Mercedo Gesta, but maybe there was some method to that madness. Maybe he comes out after working with Joe Goosen now for almost a year now, 18 months? Maybe he comes out and all that footage that Tank's team, that Calvin Ford are looking at, all that stuff is irrelevant because he's a totally different fighter now after having the time to work with Joe Goosen.
I mean, he can throw them hands in different angles, but that chin gonna be the same chin.
It is gonna be the same chin. It is gonna be the same chin, but
I mean, 5'10", I don't know if Tank has ever fought anybody at 5'10",
Well, Barrios is probably the closest. Barrios has got to be about
maybe, but he doesn't fight tall. Barrios fights from a crouch. Barrios is slow, and he definitely doesn't have that power in the lead hand. So I'm thinking about a little bit. To me, I'm going back to the trouble that Rolly, who is to me almost amateurish in some of his fighting techniques, giving Tank trouble, who was a bigger, stronger fighter, not quite as fast as a Ryan Garcia, but I could just see those kind of rounds that will kind of give people a little bit of, at least leave you a little bit pensive in watching that fight, which is the reason why we want to see the fight, actually.
The one last thing I'll say on this, if we're going to wrap up, is that Luke Campbell was the guy who famously gave Ryan Garcia his first knockdown. And I got Luke Campbell's box rec pulled up. Luke Campbell is 5'9" with a 71-inch reach, which is significant for a guy fighting at 135 pounds. And if we look up,
and then Barrios is the same. Well, Barrios is 5'10" with the 71-inch reach, and so presumably, right, we're looking at Garcia having 5 inches on Tank, but only maybe a 3.5 inch reach advantage.
Well, the point I was trying to make was Luke Campbell, with his height and his reach, was able to touch Ryan Garcia pulling straight back with his chin up in the air because of his height and his reach. Tank being 5'5" with a 67.5-inch reach, if Ryan has still got some of those bad habits, I don't know if he's able to close that distance and connect it. But Tank does have good explosive feet. He can close that distance possibly.
Get him at an angle.
Oh, get him at an angle. I'll get him at an angle. So we'll see. We'll see. If Ryan Garcia come out making the same mistakes he was making a year ago, then it's only a matter of time before Tank catches him. And I think Tank's the better fighter overall. I think Tank's on.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. Anyway. I think they're almost in different classes when it comes to boxing skills. But Garcia, one thing I will say, his power has been his saving grace in a lot of his fights, and I would be interested to see how Tank deals with it. And his speed. The guy has really kind of blinding speed at times.
Yeah, very fast hands.
So with that said, let's go to a performance that maybe didn't meet the expectations of the pundits. And this is your one, Jaron Boots Ennis, who was able to secure a 12-round decision. So this is the first time that he went 12 rounds. Against your man Kalaran Chagatsian, Chukajin, however you want to pronounce it. But So I actually had a different view than a lot of people when it came to this performance. For one, is I because there's this kind of narrative that Boots was exposed. I I saw a fighter in Chugatsi and that was not looking to engage. He had some pretty good footwork. You know, the guys from Ukraine, I think that's just part of their amateur schooling. But it wasn't fighting to win, and it wasn't necessarily boxing. There was a sense that he would get some kind of moral victory just by lasting to a round, and then he seemed to even sense that, which I find ridiculous at this level, particularly for a pay-per-view fight, and you're the main event.
What would you have told Chuka John to do in that fight? What would have been your game plan? Mind you, we are just talking about Ryan and Tank and the reach discrepancy. Boots had a 6-inch reach advantage over this guy, plus all that size. It just didn't make any sense to me. If you're Chuka John, why would you stand there and try to engage? Which he did, by the way, in the 12th and 11th round to some degree. He stood there chest to chest with Boots and engaged once the steam and the snap of his punches came off a little bit. But I think Chuka John just couldn't find a way past Boots' reach. He was able to counter him.
Yeah, well,
fight.
He was bouncing his left hook off of that was one that we talked about it on the thread. It was that Boots does seem susceptible to the left hook, particularly when he's in his southpaw stance.
But one at a time, though. If you stand here and try and put punches together in combination, he's going to counter your ass, and he was loading up, swinging for the fences.
Yeah, but Art do this. So this one thing, couple things I would have say, and then I'm gonna pass it to Fuji to get his take. Is that I would have kept that same movement. I would have came in with those left hooks over the top, and then I would have tied them up. Then I would have walked him back a little bit, and then start back over. It would have been ugly. It would have been, but he would have been scoring, and then he obviously frustrated Jerron at several times, but he just wasn't able. And Jerron was like missing terribly, but he never.
Yeah, he made him look crazy.
He never had to pay
because he was always out of range because he was on his pogo stick too much. Yeah. But if they had done that, Cam, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Fuji up. Go ahead, Fuji.
Man, I just feel like with that fight right there, man, I ain't gonna say exposed, but I'm gonna say he showed that he can't fight with Crawford and Spence and stuff like that. Because I feel like if Spence or Crawford was in with that dude, they would have got him out of there, even with all the running. So I just feel like that showed that Boots is not on that level yet. That he's good, but he's just not on that level yet with them guys, man. Because them guys is killers, and I just feel like Spence or Crawford would have got that guy out of there. That's just my feeling.
To me, that's why, and I love that you say that, because I think that this might be, besides that, this might be the best thing to happen to Jerron Boots. And because at first nobody was talking about any of his flaws or even fighting him. And I felt that, which I was wrong. I thought that Spence was going to get on the phone right now and was like, give me that fight right now. I want it. But obviously he's going for really a money fight, which we'll talk about later. But I think that this is going to bode well for Jerron Boots Ennis, and I don't see somebody who was exposed. It's just styles make fights. This was just a bad matchup for him, but I still hold him in the high in that same high esteem as I did before the fight. So
I'm not saying he whack or he's been exposed. I just feel like that showed that he's not up there with Spence and Crawford. That's just my point.
And I think what I got out of it is the boxing IQ. He came out strong. He came out wanting to get him out of there. And then towards the second half of the fight, I didn't see that same power that he was given in the first half. And then this was probably his first one of his first 12-round fights to go the distance?
I think it was his very first.
It is.
So it showed.
He hadn't been past 6 rounds.
Yeah, so it showed that he's not mentally there to be fighting 12-round fights. He's like, I'm getting this guy out of here. And then in the second half of the fight, when he has to man up, he just didn't have the power to get him. He didn't know how to get him out at that point because the dude was just a tricky fighter. So I agree with Fuji on that. You know, like he's not gonna get any of those fighters out in the first 6 rounds. He's not. And then so now we got to go to the second half of the fight, and I think that both Crawford and Spence at the elite level know how to handle a fighter in the second half of a fight, and Boots just don't have that yet. So
I don't think. Oh, go ahead. Sorry, finish.
So I just don't see it. I mean, they say okay, he might be like I think you said it, Cam, about him being faster or stronger or faster than Spence, but we see that a smarter boxer pretty much can negate a faster boxer. And that was showed that Saturday.
Well, yeah, and then timing negates speed, and there's few fighters who have better timing than a Spence.
I wouldn't even say timing because I don't think old boy had great timing. He
did. Like that's how he was able to get his punches in.
When he did
get his punches in,
I think he was just swinging and busted dude ass.
No, there was.
You talking about Ennis? You talking about?
No, we talking about Ellis when he got knocked out.
Oh, how you switch to Ellis?
Yeah, why'd you switch to Ellis?
When we had the thread, when I was telling because Cameron said that Ennis's speed will pretty much beat Spence, and then I was like, no, we had a discussion about this that Saturday night. When we said Ellis, oh boy, what's the name that beat Ellis' ass was slower than Ellis, and he knocked his ass out. So speed,
but Ellis gassed though. Ellis gassed.
Yeah. That guy blew his load, and he fought on the perimeter the whole time. So if you actually track the distance that both of those fighters went, you would have had Ellis, who probably did about 10 miles or something like that. And then the other guy who was just kind of, cutting him off probably did a third of that. And like, he just blew his load too early.
That shows you that Ennis don't know how to cut off a ring. So I mean, you just telling everything that you're saying is exposing Ellis. He did need to do a better job of cut off the ring, but he's not going to have to cut off the ring against Spence.
Yeah, he's not. Spence is going to be
right there. But that go back to the boxing IQ. That when he get in trouble, you know how what Mike Tyson said was some people get punched in the face, they lose it a little bit. Not saying it was that, but he got like Randy said, the second half of the fight, he wasn't focusing right.
Well, to me, I thought that the first half of the fight, he obviously thought he was just going to get dude out of there. He had some wild swings and all that, and then
everybody picked it.
Yeah, at a certain point, and then I think at a certain point he just said, you know what, like let me take a little bit off of my punches just so I can touch this dude, right? That's a part of a boxing strategy, is just that let me just make sure that I can put my hands on this dude and then kind of work towards the knockout. And then he did stun him a little bit. I think that he should have. I would have, if I was in Ennis' corner, what I would have told him is that I would have done a little bit of dirty boxing. I would have been grabbing dude, even kind of using my shoulder, even kind of pushing him against the rope, pushing him against.
Man, that dude's feet was way too fast, man. That cat was like Barry Sanders in there, man. He was jukey. I thought he was trying to cross Ennis up at some points in that fight. Ennis could not. He could not keep that joker in front of him, man. And that kid was able to do that for 12 rounds.
I know. I didn't think that was possible. But I mean, did you give any rounds to?
Yeah, I gave the kid Chukajan at least 3 rounds.
Well, none of the judges did.
Of course not. I mean, of course they didn't. The judges only gave Hector Luis Garcia 2 rounds. I thought he won more than 2 rounds. I mean, of course they only gave because he was on his bike. That's a very, very tough style to win, on your bike like that. But the one other thing I wanted to point out, you said what?
Think Spence or somebody would have stopped that? You don't think?
Hell no, not that dude.
Crawford.
That guy had some fast feet. I mean,
Crawford would have done better, would have landed more punches. I don't think Crawford would have stopped him. I watched Crawford go 12 rounds with Ricky Burns. Burns doing kind of fighting in a similar kind of way. Now, that was a Crawford from years ago, right?
That was a lightweight Crawford.
135-pound Crawford. But I watched Crawford go out there and look average against a guy who, like Cameron described, was out there to kind of, you might win, but you're not going to look good winning. And I watched Crawford go 12 rounds against a guy, Ricky Burns, who's been stopped, I'm sure, by lesser competition than Crawford. If we go and look, I don't have the record right in front of me, but no, that dude Chukajan would be problems for anybody at 147 pounds, and Spence especially. That'd be a horrible matchup. That's my next point, though.
Didn't he do himself a disservice?
Well, we'll have to see.
Nobody's gonna fight him. Nobody. That guy is not gonna get any top level welterweight. Who's gonna fight him at this point now?
I mean, but that's the same problem that a lot of these guys now. I mean, Boots can't get a fight, and he's number 1 or 2 in several of the sanctioning bodies. So I don't know that going out there and putting on a fan-friendly fight would have endeared him to anybody. I don't know that this kid is even signed to PBC or he's signed with any of the major promotional companies. So going out there and getting knocked out and putting on a fan-friendly fight, I don't know that would have done him any better. Now he could be the guy I went 12 rounds with Boots and made Boots look bad.
Look at
what happened with the kid from Spain, the kid Sandor Martin. Sandor Martin is not some pretty exciting boxer, right? He looked ugly winning against Mikey, and then he got the call for Teofimo.
Yeah, so, but I mean, the thing is that the difference is that he won, right? So
right.
So that put you up there, and there was at least something that people saw within his style that they at least felt that Teofimo would be able to beat this guy, particularly on short notice. But to kind of put a bow on this, what is the logical next step for Boots Ennis?
Sit around and wait. He's gonna have to sit around and wait because that Stanionis shit really fucked up the schedule. Them pushing that fight back to Stanionis' people are saying early spring, late spring, or some shit like that. Like that got to have Boots' team thinking about moving up to 54.
No, I don't think so. I think he.
I mean, let's take a look.
The guy weighed 145 pounds. Even though I think there's a little fugazi stuff going on with the scales, but he weighed 145 pounds. This is somebody who doesn't. He stays in shape. He doesn't have to get in shape. So once he
was eating steak and cheese egg rolls before the leading up to the fight, which was crazy to me.
He's 25 years old, so I still think that making that weight doesn't seem to be. He doesn't even look kind of drawn, when it comes to the weigh-in. But
so the answer to your question is going to be Ulgas.
I was just about to say that.
Ugas, I don't see Ugas fighting anymore.
What?
The guy got his face broke, man.
He's saying he got a bad chick that he got to support.
He probably got a second family in Cuba too.
How many times have y'all seen fighters come back from those when they get their face broke?
Man, that's all I'm saying.
We saw Kell.
Nah. Y'all been hyping up Kell Brook is one of Buzz.
Kell Brook did it, and his very next fight, he got his face broke again.
And then after that,
and then he was never the same.
All right, so what about I'm gonna give you 2 names.
And then we saw the last. Who's the last person that got their face broke? Y'all know who it was against Canelo.
It was Billy Joe.
Billy Joe. And that guy, I don't think he's gonna fight
Billy
again.
Joe. Now Billy Joe and Ulgas had similar injuries, I believe. They both had fractured orbital bones.
Yeah.
And I don't know that Brooke had did Brooke also have a fractured orbital bone, or was it something else?
No, it was a fractured orbital bone, but you got to remember. So the orbital is three bones that really kind of that kind of make up it's your orbital socket. But if you break any of those bones that kind of make up that orbital socket, then they call it a orbital fracture.
All right, so
go ahead.
I'm listening to these two names, but I don't know about the timing because I think Conor Ben has a fight. I mean, Conor Ben is out. So Cody Crowley.
Yeah, Crowley.
Maybe. Yes, yeah, maybe. It's not exciting, but
I mean, it's better than.
I would even say somebody like
Blair Cobbs.
I was gonna say like a Blair Cobbs, like that would be at least some type of excitement, and I think he'll sleep. You talking about somebody that walks around with the chin up? I mean, I see him sleep.
And that's another Philly guy too. I don't know if you can put that fight in Philly and put Stephen Fulton on the undercard or some shit like that, or put Danny Garcia on the undercard or something shit like that.
I can see that.
Al don't really do fights. Al don't really do fights in Philly, but I mean, it's slim pickings, man.
All right, Garcia had a fight. Was it in Philly or was it in New York?
He usually fights in the New York, New Jersey area, but I mean, I think it's like an hour train ride, depending on where you kind of that kind of metro area.
I mean, the obvious answer would have been Rashidi Ellis, my man from Lynn, Mass, if he hadn't blown that fight. And my man, whoever it was, last name was Villa, right? Was it the Venezuelan cat's last name?
Yeah, Villa.
Whoever it was beat him and fucked that up. That would have been the obvious answer. But look, Blair.
What about the winner? The winner of the Rashidi Ellis? Who was it?
I mean, like they're talking about running this shit back. That's what I'm saying. That would have been the obvious answer for Boots' next opponent, and that's what it's like. PBC was teeing that up, but obviously, shit changed when you get beat, especially the way he got beaten. But Blair Cobb, from what I understand, his contract with Golden Boy is up. After his next fight or a few months, something like that, it's almost up. So that
why don't you put all of them on the same card? I mean, Ryan Garcia against Tank, and then go ahead and put them together. Cobb, versus Boots.
Cobb versus Boots. Well, yeah. I mean, yeah, sure. Why not? It's just I don't think you can negotiate with Cobbs yet because of his contract situation, but that might be it.
And he might be in a bad situation because I don't see too many other promotion companies jumping on Blair Cobb.
Yeah, man, that's because he is fugazi. Like anybody that knows that guy,
he talk a lot of shit and he knocks people out. So I mean, would you have rather have seen before watching the fight? Would you have rather have seen Chuka John Ennis or Cobbs Ennis?
Yeah, I mean, as far as the excitement and area of that, I would have taken on Cobb because he is just severely flawed, in the style. So that's just, to me, he's just a knockout waiting to happen. He's got a very amateurish style. He fights with his chin up, but it would have been much more exciting, Cam.
It
would have been much more exciting because he doesn't have the skill or the foot speed or the foot movement to stay.
But Chuka John had all the skill in the foot movement, and it was a relatively unexciting fight.
Well, no, that's what I was saying. I was saying that Cobbs doesn't.
He didn't want to fight; he wanted to stay alive.
That's what I was saying. Cobbs doesn't have that. So he doesn't have the skill. That's what I'm saying. So those are going to make him vulnerable to getting slept by somebody like a Boots Ennis.
Cobb going to do the same shit that Rolly did. He going to sell that fight. He going to go out. He going to talk his shit. Show up with.
That's what I said. I'm not.
That'll be good for Ennis.
Yeah,
that'll be great. That'll be a good opportunity.
Mad at that fight. I'm not mad at that fight. And Cobb is 33 years old, so Cobb needs to kind of take a shit off the toilet at this point.
Yep. Because Cody Crowley, man, he could. I mean, I'm not saying anything. I haven't seen him fight, but I don't know that he's going to be an entertaining guy at the podium. To try to sell that. So
I
we'll see.
Yeah, and then Cobb has. Well, I think he's been down at least twice in his last. Few
I think he's been down more than that, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Nah. He just got knocked out there once.
No, I said
He
down.
said down.
Down.
Oh,
Like knocked down or whatnot, because he's got a vulnerable chin that he leaves up in the air. All right, but let's kind of move this segment along and let's talk a little bit about your boy from Providence, Rhode Island, Demetrius Andrade, who had a typical Demetrius Andrade fight. I think that you can just take his fights and just kind of throw them up in the air, and which one that you pick, you're gonna get the same movie that plays over and over. He comes out, firing shots in the first couple of rounds. When he realizes he's not gonna get this person out, it turns into a rather uneventful display. And I mean, I said that I want to know. I'm gonna throw this to my man, our PBC rep, the Casual Rand. What do you think that the PBC is gonna do with so they wanted him, they got him, Demetrius Andrade. So what are they gonna do with him?
Shit gonna come to a head. I mean, first off, he's just so. It's hard to watch him fight, man. It's hard. If you're a boxing fan, if you like combinations and hands flying and moving, it's hard to watch Andrade fight. But to answer your question, man, if speaking for myself, and if I was in a leadership position at PBC, shit has hit the fan. Like this year, I'm not protecting anybody. Especially at that 168 weight class where you got 4 good fighters that can potentially keep that weight class going for PBC for at least 2 years. So I'm not protecting Charlo anymore. So I'm like, hey, one of y'all gonna be, you know what I'm saying? One of y'all 2 fight this year, and the winner carry on to 2024. And then in 2024, we can have y'all fight the winner of Benavidez Plant. And then, like, you know what I'm saying? That carries you a champion until almost 2025. So it makes no business sense to protect both Andrade and Charlo. I will make them jokers go at it so I can just be like, I'm done with one of y'all. One of y'all got to go. Because I got too many. I got 4 168ers that's pretty decent. And then when Canelo dropped them belts, those 4, I'm looking at those 4 to start fighting, you know what I'm saying, going at it so they can get the belt, so they can bring it back to my stable. It's not benefiting me to protect one fighter that hasn't fought in like 2 years. So hey, give Charlo a warm up, but then the next fight need to be against Andrade.
You think
there's 3 PBC fighters in line for them belts?
Yeah, I think because you said 4 fighters, but it's really 3 PBC.
What, Plant isn't PBC?
No. Plant is, he's just not.
Benavidez.
Benavidez.
Then Andrade, and then
Andrade and Charlo.
And Charlo.
Yeah. But Charlo's not officially a 168 pounder yet. So
he pretty much is. I mean, he's never fought at that weight, but we're assuming that he is. But
right.
I think you should have a mini tournaments, a round robin, the kind of box off, and then whoever comes out of that, have them challenge your boy Canelo Alvarez. Because I just don't think Canelo is going to go through that kind of gauntlet of a big, strong, long, 168 pound fighters, particularly those who are slick boxers, which is the style that he is not really prone to look good against. But
the tournament sounds.
What you proposing is a gauntlet of all them fighters just to have the potential to fight Canelo. I wouldn't sign up for that. If he vacates, and then I'll be like, all right, put my name in this gauntlet.
Why not?
But if he doesn't vacate, you can't. I'm not going through that gauntlet for the potential for him to weasel out like he always find a way.
If he does, tell him to leave the belts behind. But they you can't sit in this holding pattern, just waiting for something. I mean, those are the fights that need to be made, and particularly at their age. Hey,
hold on one second. We forgot. Jared, we forgot the fifth. David Morrell.
No, I didn't name off Jarrell. Yeah, Morrell. Yeah, so Benavidez right now has the regular WBC. Morrell has the regular WBA.
Hey.
Willie School, who is out in promotional no man's land, is the number one for Canelo's IBF. That fight ain't happening.
Yeah, he's odd man out.
Ryder right now is the regular for Alvarez WBO. Caleb Plant is the number one, and Demetrius is the number two in the WBA. He was number two before even fighting Damon Nicholson last weekend. So, Canelo, it's going to have to be Berlanga. It's going to have to be vacate and go fight Berlanga over on ESPN. Unless he signs a deal, right? Or unless he refuses to negotiate with PBC or turns down any potential offers, and then it goes to purse bid. And I don't think PBC is going to be able to outbid DAZN in Matchroom for a Canelo fight. I don't think their dough is long enough right now.
So you're our favorite fight fan. Do you see Demetrius Andrade fighting Jamal Charlo? Because he actually called out Charlo like after the fight, if I'm not mistaken. So do you see him getting that fight this year, 2020? I don't want to hear about 2024. Still January this year. That fight happening?
No, I don't think Charlo gonna take that fight. For some reason, these fighters scared of Boo Boo, man. And I don't know, like, for some reason, they won't jump in the fire with him. I don't think Charlo gonna take that fight. Sometimes to me, Charlo be seeming like a big mouth that just want to talk at the right moments, just to hype stuff up. So I don't believe he gonna take that fight, especially not this year.
Yeah, I mean, Charlo's 32.
Demetrius 34. He the same age as Crawford. He just turned 34, I believe. We're getting ready to turn 34. He's 34. Yeah. I agree with Fuji, man. What's it called? Charlo been sitting around for damn near 19 months now? 20 months?
Well, yeah, he fought in June of 2021.
That's crazy, isn't it? This dude been sitting around for that long. So yeah, I mean,
that's your boy giving them fat checks, so that they can.
Well, again, I mean, how long can you possibly go without a check? I mean, unless has a job on the side that I'm unaware of. He got mortgage to pay. He got a big ass house. He got to pay a mortgage on, and he's got several kids, from what I understand. That can't be cheap.
Well, I was thinking about he's got them whips too. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
and he got all them cars. He got high interest loans on them shits probably.
we don't know that.
Nah, right. We don't know that. We don't know that for certain. We don't know that for certain.
He might have A1 credit. He might have 800 credit score.
But the point is, I mean, we can go back and look up what the cat's been making, and let's say he's even been making a little bit more than that. He gonna have to fight. And I mean, if you were him, wouldn't you rather move up and fight Demetrius on a potential mega fight card like that? If you anchor, and we're getting ahead of ourselves here, but if you were to anchor, let's say Ryan Tank with Charlo Andrade, wouldn't you rather do that than fight Carlos Adames and probably lose? Because Adames can beat him.
Yeah, I see
especially off of 18, 19 months sitting around. Now,
I mean, to me, it does. It makes sense. But
because if you move up, you can get a little voluntary in, even though apparently the WBC is allowing him to get a voluntary in at 160 pounds. Apparently, last time I looked, the WBC agreed to let him get a voluntary in, which is crazy to me. He's just sitting around for all this time. But he just do what they do with Keith Thurman, is make him the champion at recess.
But one thing that I will say is that neither one of them at this time hold belts.
Right.
So this would be, and unless it's for some kind of vacancy regular belt, I'm thinking that I agree with our favorite fight fan. I think that if there's no belt at stake and the risk, I think it's a perfect opportunity. But unless there's a belt or something that they can dangle in front of your man Charlo, I don't see this happening.
Or they can negotiate a small percentage of the pay-per-view buys, because that's going to increase the interest. I don't care what nobody say. You can crack your jokes about Charlo and Andrade. People will show up for that fight. People will definitely tune in for that fight. On their own, they little regional stars at best, if that. And that might be overstating things. But Charlo Andrade on anybody's card is going to increase the interest in the card. I don't know the metrics. I couldn't give you numbers. That's going to increase the metrics on that card.
Man, I think PBC should think about the Charlo brother pay-per-view like they did the one time. So they
that shit did 35,000 buys or some shit.
Man, this never doing that. I mean, he's unified fighting. Who's he fighting? Jamel. What's his name?
He ain't fighting nobody right now. He fighting the WBO.
Man, Charlo said, "I'm not a businessman. I'm a businessman."
He ain't even. he ain't even that.
He's talking about
Sue
Charlo.
So he's trying to fight Tim Tszyu. Yeah, but they got to do with anything though.
I'm saying when he fight Tim Tszyu, you could put Jamal and Andrade on that undercard.
But that's not a pay-per-view fight though.
I think so.
No, I don't think so.
Tim Tszyu. Well. I mean, it's better than the other shit PBC was putting on pay-per-view. It's better than Barrios Thurman or Ortiz Martin. Those were pay-per-view fights. So I stand corrected, Randy. By that standard, it probably is a pay-per-view fight. But I don't know that Charlo or Andrade could negotiate significant back end off of a Jamel Charlo pay-per-view event. Now, Cam, I bring that up because Cam was saying that there's not really any incentive if there are no belts. And there's no monetary incentive to be your little brother's undercard, right? I mean, at least there's some monetary incentive if you're on a Tank Ryan undercard, right? You can maybe, because you've been a good soldier, I guess, maybe, I don't know what him and Al's relationship is, maybe you can negotiate a little 0.2, 0.3% of the pay-per-view or something like that. I don't know. A little percentage and a half or 0.5% of the pay-per-view. Because that Ryan Tank shit probably going to do better than, hypothetically, an Errol Bud fight, in my opinion. So maybe that's
just because of Garcia, though. Garcia got the fans going to come through there.
Yeah, so that supported a previous argument, so I'm not even going to bring that up.
All right, so let's close this out by talking about some news that is hot off the press.
Oh, Jesus.
And that is the impending fight in April, which is your man Errol Spence against Keith. One time, sometimes I'm in the ring, Thurman.
Well, to be clear, this is still rumor. Right? This isn't being reported by any of the outlets. This is something that Mike Coppinger, who some people, depending on what side of the Spence you lie on, if you team Crawford or team Spence, you might say Coppinger's full of shit. So it's not officially, it's not announced, right? This is rumors, but sounds plausible.
I mean, it hasn't been officially announced, but so this is on ESPN. on their website, and it is Mike Coppinger, but it says that Errol Spence and Keith Thurman are finalizing a deal for a PBC on pay-per-view fight that is expected to take place in April, sources told ESPN. Spence holds 3 of the major 4 titles at welterweight, but this matchup will take place at junior welterweight, sources say. WBA President Gilberto Mendoza told ESPN that he granted Spence a special permit to fight outside the weight class. That's actually some good news, without relinquishing his 147-pound title.
Why is that good news?
Because it means that we still might get that unicorn of a fight that we're looking for.
You think, all right, so I'm going to ask you what you asked me. You think this fool is going to come back down to 147
Well,
after fighting at 154 pounds?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I don't think so. I just think that once he gets into that camp, he makes that weight cut. He sees how his body just feels and kind of reacts at 154 pounds. He is not 7 pounds is a lot of weight, particularly when you're in your early to mid
30s.
So that's and he doesn't want to put himself at a physical disadvantage going against who I consider pound for pound the best fighter out there.
He got a better chance. I've always said that he had a better chance of beating Crawford at 154 pounds. Now, better don't mean he's going to win, in my opinion. He's definitely got a better chance. His chances, in my opinion, go up fighting Crawford at 154
he beat him
pounds.
At 147, 154.
Right. Says
y'all getting off the subject. We talking Thurman and Spence. Thurman.
Well, it affects. Right, you're right. Go ahead, Fuji. What or Cam, who are you going to throw that to? Because I wanted to hear what Randy was going to say about this shit first. But Fuji the guest. So.
Go ahead, Randy.
Go ahead, Fuji. I'll let you go.
Yeah.
Well, I don't like Thurman. Like one time I used to like Thurman, man, but I don't
love Thurman.
Yeah, but when he got them belts and started holding them and wouldn't fight anybody, and Spence was coming after him back then, he didn't want to fight because Spence was a big threat. Now he feel like he deserved these fights. I feel like the only reason Spence is fighting them is just because that's just the next best thing to do. Like, I don't think he really want to fight him. I just feel like it's the next best thing to do, and it'll be somebody that Bud didn't fight.
Yeah, but I mean, with that said, I also think that,
and I think he's gonna stop him in 8.
Yeah, and let's just call a spade a spade. Thurman is not as good as Crawford. Doesn't pose that much of a challenge, and we're not. And this is a pay-per-view fight, and right. So I mean, we're not hearing any of this. Are you gonna take this side, or who's A and B, and doing all this other stuff? Because I think that this is just a fight that Spence is more readily to accept because he sees a clear path to victory. So what say you, the casual one?
No. I just agree with all the shit you just said. I mean, I think at the end of the day, this fight is going on because Bud stepped out and didn't want to fight him in December in January. So this is the ramification. There was a reason that Thurman was always lurking around number 1 or number 2 in the WBC.
He wasn't he?
Yeah, so it's a reason. So they always was they always had that shot. I think the plan was originally Spence go ahead and knock off Bud, get the unification, and then bounce to 154, and then all of them, Thurman, Boots, Ortiz, all them, that generation, well, the younger generation, and then add Thurman, fight for 147 again. But after Bud pulled his magic trick and pulled out, it left the scatter, and then it wasn't the fact that Spence didn't want to fight Boots, Spence didn't want to do this. He was just left with no dance partner, and then I think
now Spence had a dance partner. That's not true. He had a dance partner. He had Stanionis. He always had Stanionis. Stanionis been his mandatory for like 18 months or some shit.
I mean, okay, he had Stanionis, but which one was going? If you gonna fight for the most money, who was gonna give you more money, Thurman or Stanionis?
Was it on pay-per-view or it's not on pay-per-view?
Period. Spence is at a level where he's not going to not fight on regular TV.
Yeah, I don't know how much more money he gets for knocking off an irrelevant Thurman.
I think he get way more money for fighting Thurman than fighting Stanionis.
I don't know what way more money is, so I don't know the answer to that.
Well, I think there's more interest of a Spence Thurman fight than a Spence Stanionis.
That's all there is. There's more interest, and we don't really know how much, because we don't know how much money any of these motherfuckers is making.
Okay. Yeah,
right?
We can say interest. Interest. So now,
but my question is, why is this? I have my own answer to this. This to me feels like Spence flexing on Thurman because he didn't want to fight him, and Thurman wouldn't give him a title shot, and blue. So he's saying, "Well, fuck this nigga. We gonna fight. If I gotta fight you, we gonna fight at 154, and it ain't gonna be for no belts."
Right, damn right.
I mean, that's a flex, but that's pretty much saying that fuck it, man. I don't know, because then you talking business side, and on the business side, if you go to 154, you ain't coming back down to 147. You might as well relinquish all them belts, and then what are you going to do? You going to challenge? You going to step the man?
Do nothing. You gonna be in there fighting Tony Harrison's and them motherfuckers, and he might lose to one of them guys. A guy like he been fighting dudes smaller than him his whole career.
That's a
now
lot.
He's in
Brooke
now
is bigger.
You said who?
Brooke.
Kell Brook is not that much bigger than no goddamn Errol Spence.
Brooke, and during that fight, he was way bigger than Errol Spence.
What were they on the scales?
Shit. I'm talking.
We have no idea. So it's your old ass eyes.
Brooke went up to fight 154 when he fought Triple G, right? The very next fight, he was back at 147. He was bigger.
Right. You don't think Errol Spence could have been fighting guys at 154 years ago? He's been complaining about making the weight now for a while.
Yeah.
If Brooke is bigger, Randy, he ain't that much bigger than Errol Spence.
I'm not sure if he's bigger than him.
He ain't that much bigger than Spence, like how Spence is a lot bigger than Mikey Garcia or Sean Porter.
It was bigger than Gamboa. So.
Right. Okay. Fine. You could. Fine. Cool.
He always be doing
cool. That's cool. But the point is still. My point is Errol has been fighting dudes a lot bigger than him for most of his career. He's never moved up.
Yeah,
right?
like
Bud has demonstrated his skills across.
Like a Mikey Garcia, right? So
right now, if he goes up to 154,
but them people who wanted to fight him.
You said what, Fuji?
Mikey came up to fight him. Like that, he challenged him. Don't throw Mikey in there. Like
no. I understand that.
The point he went after.
I understand that. The point I'm trying to make is now that natural size advantage that he's enjoyed his whole career is gone because guys like Tony Harrison and who else we got on here? Charles Conwell. And I've never seen the kid imagine. Well, Tim Tszયુ's a big joker. I'm not saying he's a better boxer than Errol Spence, but he's a big dude. But you're gonna have to box his way out of a lot of these fights.
You know who else did that?
But no belts
and had a pretty good career.
You said who?
You know who else did that and had a pretty much good career?
Did what?
Smaller dudes and then start fighting the same size dude and bigger dudes.
Who are you thinking of?
Canelo.
Yeah, well, you know what I think of Canelo. I don't know why you bring that up.
The first 3 quarters of his career, he was weight bullying all those fighters.
Oh, absolutely. There's no question about that. So you throwing Spence in the same category that you throw Canelo in now?
No, I'm saying Canelo had a great career after that. So I'm saying, hey,
but Canelo had big names. Canelo had names like Mosley and Cotto and Khan. Okay, say what you want about when he took those fights.
Yeah, you can't yell Khan.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that Khan was just as much of a name as Brooke. Khan is just as much of a name as anybody on Errol Spence's resume.
Now you just saying generational fighters because those names ain't who's the equivalent of those guys now. In 150, 147, 154.
He ain't got him. And that's my point. So you can make the Canelo comparison if you want. At the end of the day, Canelo was fighting for 5 times as much money as Errol Spence is fighting for. It's a fight against guys who are going into the Hall of Fame. Maybe not Khan, right? But guys like, well, maybe sure. Khan sneakily has a good resume. So I don't
think he'll sneak it to the Hall of Fame.
It'd be one thing if Errol was fighting, if Errol had like a Pacquiao fight, for example, because that was the guy, right? That's the fight they wanted to make.
So should he dig Pacquiao up right now and go?
Well, he might not have to. Pacquiao might dig himself out. He came out and said he'd be interested in fighting again.
But Spence, when it went old school, he was like, yo, when who beat Larry Holmes beat the hell out of Muhammad Ali. Everybody hated Holmes for the rest of his career. So he was like, man, I'm not going to beat the shit out of him.
I don't think Spence would have to worry about that. Not with his that slavish fan base, his acolytes of dudes he's got running around. But yeah, I just don't understand this move. Like, you go up there and there's nobody up there. Your stablemate has got all the belts. Your stablemate, who last week said he could see himself staying at 154 pounds for his whole career. I mean, look at these names at 154 pounds. I mean, there's a
at one point, right? You claimed that was the best division in boxing.
It was, but that was a while ago. That the division has destroyed itself.
Charlo cleaned it out pretty good.
But not just Charlo. I mean, these guys were all fighting each other. I mean, Gachet fought everybody in the division pretty much. Lubin fought a bunch of guys. J-Rock fought a bunch of guys. They all the division kind of ate itself alive. Don't forget, back in the Jared Hurd and Eslandi Lara days, I mean, these guys were all fighting each other. And now they don't beat the division has ate itself alive. So now all you're left with is Fondura, who is the WBC regular, a guy in Tim Zhu, and Michelle Soro, Jack Kolkai, Israel Madrimov, Bakram Murtazaliev. Like, what is Spence gonna do?
Coach Days, faded fighter, Xander.
Yeah, Xander, that fight is years away for Xander. Especially after that last performance.
I'm just saying,
so it's like, what do? The biggest fights for Spence are still at 147 pounds. The most money to be made for PBC and Showtime or wherever they end up after all this is still at 147 pounds. So you better tell that little nigga, hey, you want to do this? You want to throw this your little flex? I don't have a choice right now because I need to make a fight. But you gonna get your little ass back down to 147 pounds by hook or by crook. Even if we gotta suspend those drug tests, even if we gotta do that, because there ain't no money for us. There's no money for us at 154 pounds. Not fighting Charles Conwell and them niggas.
Well, unless he fights Charlo, he hasn't.
There ain't no money in that fight neither. Charlo can't even get undisputed fights in his hometown. They got him fighting out in Central California for undisputed. All the names are at 147 pounds. There's still an Ortiz.
There's no money in a Charlo Spence fight.
Not the same kind of money that there is in a Virgil Ortiz fight in Texas. Nowhere near that money. Go ahead, Fuji.
A Charlo Spence fight wouldn't happen right now, though. Nowhere near.
Right, and that's the other thing. Thank you, Fuji. That fight is a ways out.
But he's saying that, and this is from Spence itself. He said that he hasn't said that he wouldn't fight anybody. So that's a fight that he would consider, at least in theory. It'll be hard to logistically have that fight come about because they share the same camp, and who would have to give up their trainer, in that sense. But with that said, I think that we are at the end of another banging show. It's a bit of a slow weekend, so we don't have any pundit picks that we have for this time, but we will have them for next week. We got some pretty good fights that are happening across the water. I believe your man Anthony Yard and Beterbiev are getting into the ring, and a fight that hasn't got much traction here but it's has some implications in England is the Chris Eubank versus Liam Smith fight.
Yeah, another potential Canelo opponent. Don't
Absolutely.
be surprised.
I mean that's but you know who for Chris Eubank, which I'm not mad at it. I think it's a way to kind of send him along his way, but he has been chomping at the bit to get at Triple G. And I think at this point, if anybody wants to fight him and that's a viable opponent, particularly over in England, I could see that fight happening.
I've got it on pretty good authority that Munguia Triple G is signed, sealed, and delivered. They're just waiting to see where these other fights end up taking place. They don't want to have to compete with Ryan Tank or Errol and Keith or any of them other fights. They want to see where the kind of chips land. But that fight is signed, sealed, and delivered, from what I understand.
And then
is Munguia Triple G.
Talk about that Keith Thurman, the Thurman Spence fight, man. They banging against their own people. So
which is another interesting point.
Yeah, the Tank Garcia fight is in April, and then they talking about the Spence Thurman fight is going to be in April. So that's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, but it's nothing wrong with it. Well, I mean, I at least give them a couple of weeks apart, but it's nothing wrong if we have a fun-filled April. That's
man. If I was Tank Garcia, I'd do that shit on Cinco de Mayo.
If you Gervonta Tank Davis, you got to beat this case here in the next 4 or 5 weeks. You got to beat this case, beat these charges before you worry about beating Ryan Garcia, because there's a good chance that he might have to sit down, even if it's for a few months.
Yeah.
Well, let's hope that's not the case.
Yeah.
All right. So with that said, I'm your man. Also, just one reminder once again, make sure that you we need to get them subs up. But we appreciate y'all rocking with the pundits of pugilism. This is your man, Professor M, signing out for Fuji, your favorite fight fan, the Casual Rand.
Peace.
And Boston Jed.
Peace.
Keep it popping, y'all.